are joined today by Senator Dan Laughlin. You proposed a bill to update the existing safe harbor laws for sexually exploited children. What are the current safe harbor laws in Pennsylvania?
Hi, Ellen, and thanks for having me on here. We took a look at this during one of our policy hearings on the majority policy chairman. And the safe harbor laws, it's not that they don't provide some protection for our minors right now, but there was a little bit of a glaring oversight, at least in our opinion, as to how these were implemented and who got charged with a crime if they were underage and things like that. So I mean, it's a pretty straightforward bill. It basically says, if you're under 18 and you've been sexually exploited or human trafficked for sexual exploitation and things like that, that we try not to look at you as a criminal, more as a victim. And I think that's a step in the right direction for these children.
You mentioned human trafficking. What are some other examples of sexual exploitation that minors may face?
There's a broad range of issues that these kids are having. Sometimes it's right within their own home, unfortunately. And I don't want to go into some of the horror stories that I've heard on your show here. But you can well imagine when we're talking about things like this, there are some really tragic stories with children. Sometimes it's just it can be it's difficult for me to talk about sometimes. It's terrible what some of these children have to go through just to try and get through life. When adults in their life, adults that they should be able to trust sometimes, are the ones that are trafficking them. And I think anything that we can do within that space to try and save these kids from some of these horrible situations is a worthwhile endeavor.
What inspired you to want to update these current laws?
Well, quite frankly, we held a policy hearing on some of these issues, and some of the testifiers came forth and talked about some of the different issues that children are having within this space, where they get arrested for prostitution sometimes. Let's say, I'm just using an example here. Let's say a young lady is maybe 16 years old and gets arrested for prostitution. And it's really a case of human trafficking where she's being forced into this. And it's through no fault of her own, quite frankly. And these are some of the terrible situations that these children are put in. And this law is an attempt to kind of take away that stigma that they can come and seek help, basically just to try and take that stigma away and help these kids.
What exactly is a safe harbor? Can you define that for people who may not be familiar?
It is first off, I'm not a lawyer, so bear with me here. But the safe harbor provision within our law basically says that these kids can't be tried as criminals as long as if they meet these certain criteria as far as if they've been trafficked or not. And it's not that we didn't already have some laws on the books within that space, but this bill is an attempt to clean it up, clarify it, and make it easier for these kids to get the help that they need.
How common in Pennsylvania is sexual exploitation of minors?
It's rampant. And it's a 50-state problem. It's not just in Pennsylvania, obviously, but it goes on a lot more than people imagine. I can assure you this from talking to some of our prosecutors across the state. This is happening in every community in Pennsylvania, and quite frankly, it's right under a lot of people's noses. Your neighbors could be involved in this, and you might not even know it. And it cuts across the poverty line. as well. You know, not every child that's being trafficked is trapped in poverty. I mean, certainly a lot of them are, and that, you know, leads to some of the situations that might put these kids in harm's way, but not always.
Do you believe that with this law in place, it will help decrease the number of instances in which children are sexually exploited?
You know, I mean, that's our hope, Ellen, that it will help with that. Quite frankly, I'm not sure if it'll actually reduce the number of children that find themselves in this situation. But if they do, they will be able to get the help that they need, and that's at least a step in the right direction. And quite frankly, if we can help these children out of those situations, hopefully we can put a lot of these predators behind bars that put these kids in harm's way in the first place.
We've been speaking to Senator Dan Laughlin. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ellen. Thanks for the opportunity to get the message out.